Hello and welcome, I'm Cara Scrivener, and I am back after a little bit. I have, according to this, 2 days left of school, and I am so excited. I have only read about 30 books in all of 2022, and that is critically low for me and has made me very sad. So now that I am going to be done school, I'm very excited for all of this list. So April is half over, but I do think that I might go on just a huge amount of books and read a bunch, because that is how I'm going to celebrate freedom. The first book that I'm going to reward myself with is going to be The Scarlet Pimpernel. This book is often credited with the first kind of superhero because he has the secret identity and the civilian identity, and he is pretending to be kind of this foolish, floppish gentleman. He's spying during the Napoleonic era, and meanwhile he's just this guy who's the spy and stuff for, I think, the British. Already, it is so funny. It has that kind of Charles Dickens wit without being overridden, which I'm super excited for. The next book is kind of also in this frame, and this is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I have really enjoyed the books that I read by her, and this is her most classic book, so I'm really excited to hopefully read it. It is one of the scandalous books. The next book on my list is People Change by Vivek Shaya. Vivek Shaya is a trans woman, and she is an author from Toronto, which is very close to where I live, and I really, really enjoyed her work. I think this book kind of tracks her journey and is kind of memoir, but also essay collection, and she does such a great job of doing that, and I think she's kind of talking about her career beginning as a pop star in music, and has she published and came out as bisexual and then came out as trans at around 35 in her life, and I'm really, really excited to read it, and it's nice and short. The next book is also by Canadian author Danielle Daniel, and I have seen some of her illustrations before, and I've never read her book, so I'm really excited. I believe she's kind of from the Ontario, Ottawa era. I wish I had written down what nation she was. I decided to do this while stranded in my car, so I just have the names that I had previously written. I don't have the actually details, so we're going completely on memory, but I will put on screen what nation she is from, and we'll talk about that. But this is kind of, I think, sent in the 1800s during early colonial period in which French and English settlers are coming over and colonizing and genocide and all of the terrible things that happened, and it's looking at these women who are indigenous and their stories. I'm not really sure anything more, and I don't want to know a lot. I just kind of want to go in and read this beautiful historical fiction. The next book on here I'm very excited about. It is called Where the Drowned Girls Go. This is the 6th, 7th, whichever book it is, by Sheena McGuire in her Wayward Children series, and I really, really love her series. I really love her stories. And this is set at a different boarding school where things are a lot darker. And she kind of writes novellas at about 200 pages. They're like 4 to 5 hours on audiobook, and they're just lovely and full of magic and writing and humor, and I really love them. The next book is The Souls of Black Folk, which I am almost done. I started in February, and my last few months have been a little bit crazy to be reading fairly dense things, but I'm very enjoying some of it. It's very interesting to read sociology written in 1903, because there's a lot of things that are so good, and you're like, oh my goodness, these still things are not happening, and you're still fighting for the same rights 120 years later. And then sometimes it's like, dude, maybe we don't want to talk about people that way, because you're kind of giving some of the context of blaming especially rural Black folks for issues in their own communities, while also acknowledging where slavery happens and the fact that in many ways the South is still treating people as if slavery has never ended, but then you're also blaming them and talking about these talented 10, and you're kind of seeing some roots of Black excellence and all of these other very nuanced topics that I'm not the best person to talk about. But it's an interesting book that I'm not even sure how I'm going to review, because so much of it is very well written, and it's one of the very first kind of Black philosophers talking about the souls of Black folks, and yet it is such a great book, and in many ways a kind of problematic book. So you can kind of see different roots of different things happening, and yeah, I don't know how I'm going to review it, but I'm enjoying it and also cringing sometimes. The next book, I actually don't know much about it. It is a play. It is called A Dollhouse by Henry Ibben, and it's fairly well known, apparently influenced some Oscar Wilde. I've been reading a lot of plays because they are very easy to kind of read during the time in between when I'm writing an essay or something. I'm also going to be hopefully reading a bunch of Shakespeare, because the Shakespeare-a-thon, the World the Stage readathon that is hosted by Cara, Julia, and Olivia Savannah are happening in April to celebrate his birthday, so I'm really excited for that. And I'm going to be reading Richard III again, because I've been reading some Tudor history and stuff like that, and pre-Tudor War of the Roses stuff, so I'm excited to this. I didn't particularly love this play when I read it 4 to 5 years ago, but I definitely want to read more of his history plays and get more acquainted with Shakespeare in that way. And then talking about being acquainted with kind of historical, we have Sense and Sensibility, which I have read about the first 3 to 4 chapters during it, but I haven't been able to dedicate my whole time, but it has been a great break from the stress of the semester. And then I also have Harris, which is a retelling of Anne de Bourgh's story, who is the daughter of Lady de Bourgh, and kind of the way that opium influenced upper society in Regency era. Especially when it comes to historical fiction, I often don't want to know a lot about it, so I am suffering from that as well, because This Is a Yellow Wife, I've heard really good things about it so far, and I'm interested, and I don't know much about it. I know that it has a black main character, and I believe that is in kind of colonial era USA, but I'm not really sure much about it, other than I believe that it deals with the dynamics between wives of different backgrounds. And then we also have Wuthering Heights. This is a project me and my roommate have been working on for a very long time now. We haven't read much of it since August, but we have fun with the dogs and the great things. I definitely want to get this off my reading list. I want to read more of the Brontes, which means finishing this book so that I can move on to Agnes Grey and 10 to Wildfall Hill and all of that. Then we also have There by Tommy Orange. This is a book that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I believe that this is also historical fiction, which is probably why I don't know what it's about, but I know that Tommy Orange is very well received and loved by the Indigenous community. The next book on here is a fantasy, and it is Curses. I've been so excited since it came out in the fall, and I've been waiting on holes, so I will totally get the camera situated. This is a story that is kind of a Beauty and the Beast reversed, where the man is very beautiful and his family keeps on making him fall in love with women and help them fall in love to kind of steal their fortunes, I think. And she has to marry someone else too. Does she have a curse on her? Something like that. I was very interested. Cara from the Wilde Book Garden really, really loved it. It sounded like a book I thought I would really love, and I'm very excited for it. So that is the fantasy I'm most excited for. I really want to get back into fantasy. And talking about that, I also have Gallant, which is a book that is by V.A. Schwab. It is dark and has some, nice kind of gothic aesthetic things. I'm sure it's going to be great. I don't know anything about it. We have A Bit of a Real Estate Problem, which is a nonfiction about Indigenous comedy and how comedy has intersected with, race and with culture and with erasure and with genocide and how that's talked about, and I'm really, really excited for this. And last, I've been in a huge mood for some graphic novels, so I picked a bunch of them. Who knows if I'm going to read all of them this month, but I'm excited for them all. So we have American Born Chinese. I believe it's a story about, I think it's actually a memoir. It's a memoir, or it's like a kind of his story fictionalized into non-memoir, graphic novel. I think it came out in 2006, and it's about his story and about him growing up as a boy in, the 80s and 90s, I believe, as a boy of Chinese descent who was very much known as being Chinese and being a foreigner and all of these things, even though he was born in America and raised there. Then we have March Book 3. I have really, really enjoyed the March trilogy by John Lewis. I read the first one last year, the second book last month, and I'm really, really excited for this. I felt so immersed. I feel like I could read these books so many times, and they have so great content. He does a really good job of being encouraging and uplifting, wanting you to fight, but never ever shying away from the graphicness and the severity of the civil rights movement. Then we have Class Act, which is by Jerry Craft, and this is a sequel to New Kid. It was also such a brilliant exploration of Black boyhood and his experience of going to a school that was primarily made of white people, and how the insidiousness of racism in class and stuff like that. And I really, really loved it. I hope that he continues to write. There's only been these two so far, and it's been a few years, but I'm hoping that we'll see some more because I really, really loved the first one. And then we have Stealing Home, which is a graphic novel. I've only read the first few pages kind of to give it a little sample, and it's talking about how this Japanese baseball team and how they can all get behind it because that is a place where they can feel at home and stuff like this, and it's taking place during the Second World War, and I believe that it deals with internment of Japanese Canadians and the revoking of their rights and citizenship because of racism during the Second World War. I didn't already have way too many books on this list. These are some of the ones that I'm hoping to because I'm super excited. We have A Thousand Ships, which is by Natalie Haynes and is, again, set in the Greek times and it fictionalizes a bunch of women during the Trojan War, I think. I don't know, I saw Pandora's Jar came out and I was like, okay, I need to read this because I don't know if they're connected and I want to read all these Greek myths. So I've been meaning to read this for a while. My roommate loves it. I'm hoping it'll be great. And then I have Thornwood, another one that Cara really, really recommended, and I believe it's a twist on Sleeping Beauty, but they get along really well, like the sisters. Yeah, it's Sleeping Beauty, I think. Anyways, it's fairy tale retelling in middle grade, and I'm super excited. It has sisters, and apparently it's a very ingenious retelling of it, and I'm super excited. So let me know what you're planning on reading in April, what your favorite book of April has been. I've read 3 graphic novels / plays this month because that's all I've been reading, but I've been really enjoying the hope of rewarding myself by reading books again. So let me know what I should be picking up, what I should be hoping for, and I will talk to you guys soon.